As I come to you and speak to you this morning, this is probably the most unusual Easter that you have ever had, hopefully that you ever will have. The world seems to be sort of turned upside down, shaken, spun around. Nothing seems to be where it was. Nothing seems to be happening as it did. Nothing seems to be happening at all, as the world is almost shut down. As I was thinking about this Easter and what I might say to you, a couple of events came to my mind. One is September 11th, 2001. You all probably remember seeing those jet planes enter into the Twin Towers in New York City. And after they entered, the towers crumbled. Our lives were drastically changed then. But one difference about then and now. I was pastor of a small country parish, and one of the parishioners called early afternoon after the towers had fallen and said, "Do you suppose we could have Mass tonight?" It was a weekday. I said, "Sure, call some people." By the time 7:30 came, the church was full. It was packed, more than most any other event, because we could go to church. And that's one of the drastic differences of today. We're basically told to stay away, out of concern for others' health and their safety. And so we have. A second event last Sunday, I watched the Ten Commandments. I liked the movie. Believe it or not, it was the first movie I ever saw as a kid in a theater. Our whole school, grade 1 through 12, walked down to the theater, and I must admit I was awestruck by that big picture on the screen, and also the great cinematography, watching that wall of water separate and then come back in. But the part of the movie that caught my attention this time was first the last plague, when the angel of death came into the city. It didn't come with lots of noise. It was coming very quietly and eerily, going down the street. And eventually it took the lives of all the firstborn males. Much like the plague of today, of now. It didn't come crashing into a tower with lots of noise and fire and flames. It is kind of eerily creeping across the world. And now we even watch it as it creeps across the country. It's scary because you can't name it. You cannot see it, but you see all of the implications of it. The second part of the movie, which was equally amazing, is once Pharaoh says, "Get out of here, leave Egypt," and they go to the edge of the city, and Joshua is there to lead all the people. The joy and exuberation of all of the people was amazing. In spite of all that they had experienced in slavery, they now had a new joy, a new hope, because they were free. So when we look at today, this Easter Sunday, we might say, is there joy in it? Is there happiness in it? And I think that's where I would draw upon one more thing about this particular pandemic that we're experiencing. And that is a word that now is totally in our vocabulary. Sanitize, sanitize, sanitize. That's a good thing to do, and I encourage it strongly. But there's another way to use the word sanitize, which is not so good. Sometimes we like to sanitize life. We like to think it's better than maybe it is. We like to think things aren't what they are. So sometimes we gloss over situations that are difficult or uncomfortable. And I think in some ways we have sanitized the Easter story. So let me tell it to you in just a slightly different way. We can think of Jesus Christ, that babe born in the crib, and the angels singing see great throngs of people hanging on his every word. But don't forget what happened next. First, he came into Jerusalem with people waving palms, praising, singing. But not too long after that, he was betrayed by a mob mentality. He was ridiculed. He was scourged. He had a crown of thorns. He was then tortured in one of the worst forms of torture of his time. He was hung with criminals next to him. He was stripped in front of the people. Truly today we would call that sexual abuse. And then he was crucified and died. Now think of Jesus' friends, his mother, and all others that were there. We can kind of gloss over that part of the story, and that's where I suggest sometimes we sanitize. We forget the ugliness, the difficulty, all that went with this form of dying. And certainly when we sanitize it, we forget what is on the other side and why it is so joyful and exuberant. Because Jesus rose. He beat death. Death did not win in his case, and now for all of time. And so, we find in the Easter story today, the women, and then later the disciples, they're coming out to the tomb. Now remember, they're coming off of a very difficult, traumatic experience. All of the raw feelings, emotions, sadness, everything else are right there up front. And now all of a sudden they go out to where he was buried. He was taken and buried in a tomb all by himself. Something like today's funerals, where people aren't coming either. And so all of a sudden they get there. Can you imagine the feelings? The raw pain, the hurt. And then all of a sudden the wonderment and the curiosity. The tomb is open. It's empty. But then there are angels who say, he is risen. They didn't have a clue what the word he is risen really meant for them and for all of time. But they started to discover this new sense of realism in their life, that maybe what he said to us is true. It did happen exactly as he said. He would suffer, he would die, but he would rise. And in all of their hearts, it enkindled a new joy. They didn't know what it would mean. They knew it was uncertain, but it was joyful. It was uplifting. It was positive. So I suggest on this Easter that maybe we focus a little bit more on the uncertainty that those disciples felt. They felt uncertainty, but they didn't despair. They had hope that what lied ahead, whatever it was, this Jesus who could beat death could beat anything. And so I would suggest to each of us that maybe we take that to heart this Easter season. This virus is deadly. It's painful. It's hurtful. And yet, it's not going to beat us because Jesus has risen. He's risen for us already. And so we need to focus on that risen Christ. And one thing I think which we might also draw from this Easter season this year is a renewed sense of gratitude. Gratitude for faith, gratitude for the Eucharist, gratitude for friends and family. Sometimes when you lose something and it's taken away, you start to realize what it means to you and you go stronger. And so my wish to each of you is a happy Easter today. A happy Easter where you can take the uncertainty which we all feel, but ask the risen Christ to be with us. And that we strive to live in gratitude. While we do not know what lies ahead, we do know what lies behind. We know the end of the story. Death did not win. The resurrection did. So let us truly pray that Jesus, the risen Lord, will be with us this Easter season Walk with us as we go forward and give us renewed